Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Mike for a special journal entry, July 11th, 2025. Today I woke up several times during the night, each time getting better at lucid dreaming and those within them altering my perception of to fit whoever is subjectively involved or watching. Those who pride themselves on altering real physical dimension must be masters. In a world where we believe that those REM state manifestation is within each's own multiverse, I have a strong feeling of being trapped in a simulation time loop that never closed but only can be altered if leveling up in conscious lucidity of my dream state. Every time I have a displacement of massive energies in those realms of my psychological mindset, going back to sleep permits me to alter it in real time. Those massive switch of consciousness access can be felt via majority ownership. Simply put, those exchange have to be worked up on and be held when the shift occurs. Altering an easy choice and remaining conscious, bypassers can interact with your most vulnerable self. Sometimes no choice is given and you are following someone else's creation. That makes me wonder, if not yet developed, i.e., changing the whole background, how big of a frequency is owned by the subjective consciousness is needed to maintain the same level after the fact. I tend to always wake up after such conscious shift, but only when there is a new majority or repeated realms are needed to induce such interactivities between different dimensions, depending on how deep you sleep. Can those alternative verses be re-entered at will or even fused into a bigger fortress if we believe in Super Mario World? Does it really affect what you are doing before induced into sleep, and resolving a problem set in a different consciousness really can be resolved within your alternative reality? To someone's creation and involved in consciousness world building, the metaverse of REM activity must be mastered and maintained. How can one master what is already the most prized and vulnerable state we as human beings, if never guided? Working on mental sharpening and consciously leaving clues to those unlocked doorways you lucidly create. Hiding a key in plain sight is short sighted because it is part of a larger puzzle that connects to a pixel on the fifth depth augmented masterpiece. Flipping bits and pieces is hard to remember. The sound we consciously awake from those sudden shifts of consciousness. Practicing a meditative approach to those exact moments have to be learned, and breathing exercise have to be worked backwards if the forward mental mind is pre-programmed. Our mind is capable of unthought deep diving into worlds that exist but are past our physical human form. These beings of other worlds know how to shift consciousness of others, and it is to the dreamer to decide if such majority shift is needed rather than gradually working on a sub-majority of a fractional CPU usage. We shift the reality we are in, even in physical form, to match others' narrow version of what we perceive to them and those existing on all planes of existence. Grasping the woodworks of these moments always have to be respected and noted, giving self-symphonic memory of said imagery in balance of the current of the unbridged gaps, being in a whole different realm and frequency, consciously unaware there is more eyes needed to materialize what we retain in our minds. Following this flow of thought, if no problem or need to resolve it, how does one have a blank canvas, or is it just a continuous flow of memory getting snatched? Having a tile full of unfinished designs, how is it possible to, in a way, just defragment all these worlds and interverse of our personal multiverse? Spiritually complex, involving those gatekeepers must be reharnessed so the correct key can be never remain open. Majority shift can be controlled and altered within itself, but always counterbalancing what is only necessary to remain the designer creator of someone else's initial design. Wake up to an extension of our basic memory is enough to disbalance future state that we need to remain on the ball. During all psychological realms, we must undergo safety measures and disperse in future tense the happening of that shift of collective awareness during those simultaneous decisional points of entries. Those points have to be looped before and concentrated the majority ownership towards a leeway point, where the imbalance wakes you up abruptly. In this design, we can assume at least have some sort of foundation so they themselves, the gatekeepers, can alter the initial purpose of the beginning of the entry. Reverse engineering one's final pixelated point to alter physical matter and other realities. Those precious defragmented energies are concentrated to a centralized, all multiplying with overlay by brute force. Root access has to be accessed via harmonic symphony of the collective frequency. Being in tune with meditative measures, thoroughly exercised can give you an edge when mastering other telecommunicative needs in the real world. Being serious about mastering a lifetime of lucid dreaming will demand mental function that have to be explored during the alpha realm and visualizing during full lucid consciousness. Hitting the theta waves and synchronized with a flow key, such alternative points may open subjective points, multiplying more than one point of view, but is always the same from the objective stance. We can alter a bit we can alter a bit of others' value low wave light and embrace a setting in which the dreamer can theorize by perception only. These moments of time control and interface of physical beings' wellness altercation must be avoided in light darkness and can never majorize, even hatch from a delusion or theoretical exercise. God willing, those participants can be in turn subject of said theory. If all interventions are connected to our personal multiverse, those who consider self-indulgent and adult playground where the bending of rules is encouraged and meant to be broken. Those special gifted digitalized versions can be altered differently and brought back to front and center. Mastering lucid dreaming is a conscious mirror if one wants to alter your own perceived image from another's point of view. Those who unlock unaccessible parts of their brains can unlock in the first person aspect to mastering other fields. Those energies will remain with said body until the beta finds its alpha, consciously subconscious and unconsciously blocking their own bridgeless gaps. The gatekeeper are the most trusted architecturally inclined creators because their frequency can never be altered until the alternative subsequently becomes majority ownership and protect all access points. First coming to tunnels beneath, bypassing bottom up pyramid hierarchy. Power in the powerless and controlling the controller is forever engraved in the forgotten knowledge of respect. Superpowered by self-indulged crossing all T's for every I can distort partial creative measures. Short-circuiting in a wormhole the finished product on a 2D board, and the design has no set motion or flow but augmented minds who envision 3D analyzed versions of their 4D and 5D deconstruct. The design becomes a whirlwind of antimatter in our minds, but in reality is the extension of the multiverse theory. Those multidimensional beings walking the same planes of consciousness as us and who have devoted themselves inside of creating their own co-authored slice of paradise, flowing through generational choice but never by time, evading the confines of distance, instantly granting access to those energies matching the paradox of multi-consciousness in physical realms. These realms and verses can only continue if the respect of those segue points are properly harnessed and properly deconstructed when entering within your dimension of said verse or verses. Multiverse can be created, instantaneously created within one verse, defying and disobeying any concept of what is real and isn't. Said paradox are quantumly resolved before arise motion, such as a conscious thought braids off on their own. No said opposite state can ever detach from a conscious mind that prepredicts said behavioral trait, gifted to the keepers of the gates. In this most vulnerable state, we seek the light and swear to protect the majority lightning rod that casts multiple safeguards. Remove all governors and constraint, and it should believe that pre-sleep breathing and synchronized wave patterns are all colliding. This would help the consciousness to forego a lack of precious sleep, but in lieu of disbalancing his own portal. Seeing us worlds apart is more than just as above so below, as below so above. We've never accounted for right to left having its own spectrum of quantum entanglement. Those light barriers are optically adjusted with a set of lens with depth which do not penetrate the grand design of a separate pixel becoming its own whole of a consciousness in that REM state. Each pixels are mentioned and obey some universal law of polarity, never coincide or bond together. Matter of fact, we dream at night and go places that are not physically real to our physical form, but are mimic creation of consciousness that fragmented once portal access are open. We decide where and when we go into these monumental breakthrough versions of subconscious detachment. The vast emptiness of creating an open source code must be entered to finish the unfinished. Just like the back of the dollar bill, where the detached pyramid is source code 0, and the one after rejoining and reattaching completing a line of code and was never meant to keep score but to ensure the masterpiece of larger pixels, pre-programmed a mind at a time, linking the surrealities to the multiverse and therefore granting access to our subconscious, wherever always ending up in the gamma realm frequencies. Thank you for listening. This was Mike for Road to the Illuminati, journal entry July 11th, 2025. Lucid Realms, Conscious Ownership, and the Architecture of Dreamscape.